They thought breaking you would end you, but they didn't know God was using every scar, every betrayal, and every silence to build someone they'd no longer recognize, someone they'll now have to watch rise. In fear, there were moments they thought you'd never rise again. They looked at your silence and called it weakness. They watched your pain and called it defeat. But what they didn't see was what God was doing in the silence. What they broke, he was rebuilding. What they laughed at, he was preparing. Now, it's time for them to see what you've become, not out of revenge, but out of purpose. They tried to break you, but God is about to show them exactly who you really are. They mistook your silence for surrender, not knowing storms don't roar, they rebuild. That's the mistake they always make. They see you go quiet, pull back, detach from the noise, and they think they've won. They think you've given up, but what they never understood is that some of the most dangerous awakenings happen in silence. Real strength doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't perform. It rebuilds in the dark, brick by brick, while no one's watching. You see, you weren't retreating, you were recalibrating. You were gathering everything they tried to scatter. While they were laughing, while they were pointing fingers, while they were celebrating the mess they left you in, you were in the shadows, putting yourself back together with a fire they couldn't even imagine. And that silence, that was sacred, that wasn't defeat. That was the storm pulling itself back, tightening, building pressure, getting ready to return with a force so undeniable, even the ones who hurt you would be left speechless. But they couldn't see that, because they've only known power that's loud. They've only seen strength that flexes. They couldn't comprehend the kind of fire that doesn't need to be seen to be real. They never knew that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one yelling, it's the one who already made peace with their pain. And that's who you became in that silence. Someone who made peace with pain. Someone who stopped waiting for apologies. Someone who finally realized that healing isn't about forgetting, it's about forging something harder than the pain. You didn't need to scream. You didn't need to beg them to see your worth. You let the silence speak for itself. You let it do what rage couldn't: sharpen your focus, clean out the noise, and teach you who you are without their validation. And now you're not coming back for revenge. You're coming back with clarity, with discipline, with an unshakable presence, and the ones who tried to break you, they won't recognize you anymore. That's the beauty of becoming. It makes you unrecognizable to the ones who only knew how to break you. They thought silence meant you were finished, but the silence was you evolving, becoming smarter, harder, colder maybe, but colder in the way steel gets cold, unbending, final, unforgiving. That's what happens when someone builds themselves without applause, without comfort, without mercy. They come back different, they come back real. You didn't need an audience, you didn't need their help. All you needed was time, and that's what the silence gave you. Time to remember who you were before the betrayal. Time to shed the pieces of yourself that you were holding onto out of habit, not strength. Time to become someone who doesn't chase closure anymore, someone who is the closure. You learned in that quiet place that not everyone deserves access to you, that not everyone can walk with you in your next chapter, and that's the kind of strength that shakes people, not because you raised your voice, but because you didn't have to. Because you outgrew everything they tried to trap you in. You outgrew their narrative, you rewrote your own. That silence was the most powerful thing you ever gave yourself, because it wasn't just quiet, it was sacred war. A war fought in stillness, in sweat, in isolation, but you won. You didn't just survive them, you outlived the version of you that needed them, and now you walk differently, you speak differently, you move differently, because you no longer move to be understood. You move with purpose, you move with precision, and you move with the awareness that the same people who watched you fall are now watching you rise, and they don't have a single word to stop it. Let them watch. You didn't break, you transformed in silence, and now your return will be terrifying, because the truth is, breaking would have been easier, breaking would have been expected. That's what they were waiting for, the moment you'd snap, collapse, beg for help, drown in the weight of what they did. They were counting on your weakness, they were praying for your downfall, but you gave them nothing, no breakdown, no explosion, no tears they could mock. You disappeared instead. You vanished into the silence, and that scared them more than anything else ever could. Because silence doesn't mean surrender, it means evolution. You went quiet because you had work to do, not the kind of work that the world applauds, not the kind you post online, the kind of work that happens in shadows, internal, brutal, relentless. The kind that strips away the lies you once believed about yourself. The kind that forces you to sit with your pain until it becomes power. The kind that doesn't make noise, it makes monsters out of the broken pieces. They don't know what it took to sit in that silence and still choose to grow, to take every wound and turn it into a weapon, to face every fear and bury it, to take the shattered parts of your identity and weld them back together, not as who you were, but as who you were meant to become. You didn't crawl back. You didn't rebuild into the same version. You came back forged, reinvented, transformed into something that no longer flinches, no longer doubts, no longer bends. They thought they could destroy you by abandoning you, by betraying you, by pretending you never mattered. What they didn't realize is that betrayal is a brutal gift because it strips you down to your essence. And once you hit that core, once there's nothing left to fake, nothing left to pretend, something fierce gets born. Not in front of cameras, not in front of people, but in the pit where pain lives. That's where you rose. Now you move different. You walk into rooms with a quiet presence that shakes people. Because you're not seeking attention, you are the consequence. The result of what happens when a person refuses to die in the darkness they were thrown into. You survived without clinging. You healed without closure, and that makes you dangerous because you know now. Nobody can take from you what you no longer need from them. You don't explain yourself anymore. You don't lower your voice to be heard. You let your actions speak. You let your consistency echo, because your return wasn't built to impress anyone. It was built to last. It was built to outlive every lie they told, every rumor they spread, every version of you they tried to define. They'll look at you now and wonder how you did it, how you kept moving when everything around you fell apart. They'll search for the blueprint, not knowing it was written in blood and sleepless nights and silent prayers that nobody saw. They'll study your strength like it's a mystery, but it was never a mystery. It was forged through fire they lit themselves. You let them think you were done. You let them believe you'd stay broken because you didn't owe them a warning. They deserved the silence. They deserved to see you rise with no announcement, no apology. No explanation, just presence, unshakable, undeniable, and terrifying because it proves that nothing they did worked. You don't look back with revenge in your eyes. You look forward with peace, but it's a hard peace. A sharpened kind, the kind that came after the war, the kind that doesn't need validation because it knows its own worth. That's the version of you they were never ready for, the one they accidentally created. The one who walked through fire, smiled at the flames, and came back without a single fear left. And now, let them see what silence created. The same ones who betrayed you will choke on the strength they helped awaken. They never realized what they were doing. They thought betrayal was the end. They thought by walking away, lying, tearing you down behind your back, they were taking something from you. They believed they were stripping you of power. What they didn't know is that betrayal doesn't take your power, it reveals it. It shakes the ground beneath you, yes. It cuts deep, yes. But it also exposes something they never meant to awaken. It wakes up the part of you that forgot how dangerous you are when you're no longer trying to be loved. You didn't ask to be awakened. You were trying to move in peace, love people right, build something real, but they couldn't handle that. They mistook your heart for weakness. They thought kindness was a flaw. So they took advantage of it, used it, mocked it, then discarded it like it was nothing. But what they threw away didn't die, it adapted, it burned, and in that fire your strength was born. They betrayed you thinking it would silence you, thinking it would humble you, but all it did was harden you in the right places. You stopped seeking comfort from people who couldn't even hold your name with respect. You stopped waiting for explanations from people who were never built to tell the truth. And you stopped needing permission to be powerful. That's when everything changed, because once you stop needing them, you start becoming who you were always meant to be, unshaken, unapologetic, and now you move with a different kind of energy. A silent confidence, a grounded presence, the kind of strength that makes people nervous, especially the ones who thought you'd stay broken. They were hoping you'd never get back up. But now that you're standing, now that you're rising, they don't know what to do with what they see. And here's the truth, they helped create it. Their lies made you sharper, their rejection made you focused, their absence gave you space to grow into someone they can't manipulate anymore, and now they'll have to live with that. They'll have to watch you carry the weight of what they tried to bury, and lift it like it's nothing. That's what makes it poetic. That's what makes it righteous. They planted pain thinking it would crush you. Instead, it fed your roots. They thought your strength was the version they saw before the betrayal, but your real strength, the one they can't touch, it was born after. It came out of the nights you cried alone. Out of the days you showed up anyway, out of the moments you wanted to quit but kept pushing forward. That's the strength they're about to meet, not the one that smiles to be accepted, but the one that walks alone because it's finally free. You're not coming back to impress them. You're not coming back to prove anything. You're coming back because you became something they couldn't control, and that threatens everything they believed about you. That scares them, because when someone rises after betrayal, they become someone you can't predict, can't define, and definitely can't stop. Let them feel the shift. Let them sit with the silence they created. Let them watch you build without needing their approval, because your rise won't be about revenge. It'll be about clarity, about finally realizing you were never weak. You were just surrounded by people who needed you to be. Now they'll see what they really did. They'll see what they woke up when they tried to break you, and they'll choke on it, not because you're loud, but because you're undeniable, because everything they feared you could become. You already are. Now let them feel what you felt in the only way truth ever delivers, quiet, cold, and final. Every scar they left has now become your armor. You're no longer touchable. They thought the damage was permanent. They thought the pain they caused would stay raw, stay open, always bleeding. What they didn't expect was that you'd turn it into protection. They didn't realize that every time they cut you, they were teaching you how to never be cut the same way again. They didn't understand that scars don't mean weakness. Scars mean survival. Scars mean the pain didn't win. You carry it differently now. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the abandonment, it's still there, but not like it used to be. It doesn't control you anymore. It doesn't paralyze you. It doesn't pull you under. You've worn it too long, felt it too deep, and now it sits inside you like iron. It's no longer a wound, it's a weapon. It's what you draw strength from when everything else gets quiet. They hurt you thinking it would make you softer, smaller, more afraid to trust, less willing to try. But what they ended up doing was building a version of you that doesn't flinch anymore. You stopped begging people to stay. You stopped shrinking yourself to be liked. You stopped letting people play with your time, your heart, your future. That's what those scars taught you. Boundaries, self-respect, power, things they never wanted you to learn, because now you see it coming. You feel the energy shift. You read between the words. You're not fooled by smiles that hide agendas. You're not moved by people who only show up when it's easy. You've been there before. You've seen what betrayal looks like when it's wearing a familiar face. So now you don't just protect your peace, you enforce it, and that's what makes you untouchable, not because nothing hurts you anymore, but because nothing surprises you anymore. You faced the worst of it and made it through. The worst things they could have said. You heard them, the lowest moments they could have dragged you into. You stood up from them, and now they can't hurt you the same way again. You've outgrown their weapons. You've outlived their control. Every scar you carry is a story of a battle you didn't quit, of a version of yourself you left behind, and every time someone tries to throw shade on your name or bring your past up like it's supposed to haunt you, you just smile. Because that past, that pain, that's what made you this version, stronger, quieter, sharper, not desperate to be understood, just rooted in who you are. They look at you now and wonder why you don't respond the way you used to. Why you're not so easily shaken, why you don't explain yourself anymore, and it's simple. You've been through worse, you've already faced what they're trying to threaten you with, you've already lost what they think they can take from you. And you survived. They were trying to break you, but they accidentally taught you how to never be broken again. That's what makes this powerful. That's what makes it final. They were trying to destroy you, but all they really did was build someone they'll never have access to again. You became someone they can't manipulate, can't guilt, can't control with silence or chaos. You stopped reacting, you stopped chasing, you stopped needing anything from anyone who doesn't stand with you in truth. So now every scar is armor, and your armor doesn't just protect you. It warns them. It tells the world that this version of you doesn't bend for comfort. It doesn't soften for approval. It doesn't shrink for convenience. This version of you is done being touched by people who never learned how to handle something real. You didn't just heal, you evolved. You became someone they can't access, can't use, can't shake. And that's the cost of betrayal. They don't just lose you. They lose the right to ever reach the version of you that pain created. Now let them feel the distance they built with their own hands. They fed off your downfall, now they'll witness your rise with eyes wide in fear. They watched you fall, and they enjoyed it. That's the part no one wants to admit, that some of the people closest to you were quietly rooting for your failure. Maybe not out loud, but inside they smiled, they whispered, they nodded when things went wrong for you. And when you struggled, when you hit rock bottom, they didn't reach out, they didn't check on you, they didn't offer a hand, they just sat back and watched the fire burn, hoping it would finish what they were too afraid to start themselves. They didn't want to see you rise because your light exposed their shadows, your resilience made them feel small, your ambition reminded them of everything they gave up on, so when life hit you, they cheered. When you stumbled, they talked. When you lost things you loved, they celebrated in silence, pretending to care while secretly feeding off your pain. It gave them comfort. It made them feel strong. But what they didn't realize is that they were watching the wrong chapter. What they saw wasn't the ending. It was the shedding. It was the transformation. It was the part where everything false had to fall away, the people, the illusions, the distractions, so the real version of you could finally rise. And rise you did, not all at once, not with fanfare, but slowly, quietly, relentlessly. They didn't see the nights you couldn't sleep, the mornings you forced yourself to show up, the battles you fought inside your own mind just to keep moving forward. But now they'll see the results. You don't move like you used to. You're not seeking validation. You're not hoping they notice you anymore. You're not giving energy to people who tried to bury you. Now you walk in silence, but your presence speaks volumes. They'll feel it before you even say a word, because your rise won't be loud, it'll be undeniable. They'll sit in rooms and hear your name. They'll scroll and see your face. They'll hear about your progress, your strength, your clarity. And it will sting, because they weren't ready for this version of you. They weren't prepared for someone they underestimated to become unstoppable, and they definitely weren't prepared to realize they played a part in creating you. That's the irony. The same people who wanted to see you fall are the ones who fueled your comeback. Every doubt, every insult, every moment they turned their back, it pushed you, it sharpened you, it made you focus in ways you never had before. You got tired of explaining yourself, tired of proving your worth, so you stopped talking, and you started building. They thought you were done. They laughed when you disappeared, but what they didn't know is that disappearances are often the beginning of reinvention. And now, when they see you again, they won't recognize what they helped unleash. The calm in your eyes, the stillness in your voice, the power in your silence. That's what they'll fear the most, not your anger, not your words, but your evolution. Because you're not trying to hurt them, you're not trying to make them regret. You're just existing in a way that reminds them of everything they tried to destroy, and that's enough, that's more than enough. Your rise is the consequence they never expected, and it will haunt them not because you've changed, but because you finally stepped into who you always were without needing their permission. You outgrew the lies. You healed past the damage, you walked out of the fire they left you in, and now every step you take leaves a mark they can't erase. They fed off your downfall. Now let them watch you rise and choke on the silence you leave behind. What they tried to destroy is now untouchable, unshaken, and unrecognizable by design. They thought they knew you. They looked at you like you were predictable, easy to break, easy to manipulate, easy to replace. That was their mistake, believing you would always stay in the version they were comfortable hurting, the soft one, the trusting one, the one who gave chances even when none were deserved. They didn't see what was coming. They didn't expect that the pain they caused would become the very blueprint of your evolution. Because when someone tries to destroy you, they're betting on your collapse. They're counting on you losing yourself in the chaos they create. But that's not what happened. You didn't shatter, you rebuilt. You didn't disappear, you transformed, and you did it quietly, silently, intentionally. Piece by piece, you took back your power. You didn't scream for attention. You didn't beg them to stay. You let the silence do what words never could. It changed everything. You learned to walk through the fire without burning. You learned to carry the weight without breaking. You learned to stop giving your energy to people who only knew how to drain it, and slowly you became something they never wanted to see, untouchable, because now, no matter what they say, no matter what they try, you don't respond like you used to. You don't crack, you don't chase, you don't flinch. That version of you is gone, and that's what scares them, that the access they once had no longer exists. The buttons they used to push, disconnected. The emotions they used to manipulate, buried. You've changed your design on purpose. You removed the weaknesses they loved to exploit. You replaced them with strength that doesn't announce itself, it just is. Steady, grounded, controlled. You don't explain anymore. You don't argue. You don't correct the lies. You just let people talk because you know now. Truth doesn't need defending when it's backed by results. They'll see it in how you walk, in how you no longer apologize for your boundaries, in how you protect your peace like it's sacred because it is. You earned it, and it wasn't easy. They'll never understand that part. The nights you questioned everything, the days it felt easier to give up than go on, the hours you spent sitting in your own silence, wondering if you'd ever feel whole again. They'll never know how hard it was to climb out of the mess they left you in because you never let them see you struggle. You carried the pain in private, and now you wear the victory in your posture. You didn't come back the same. That's the part that stings the most for them, because if you did, they would have found a way to break you again. But this version doesn't give second chances to chaos. Doesn't beg for closure, doesn't hold space for people who disappeared when it mattered most. This version knows what it cost to become unshaken, and that's why it protects everything that helped build it. They won't recognize you. They'll try to talk to you like nothing happened, try to smile like they didn't throw dirt on your name when you were at your lowest, but you'll just keep moving because now you know not everyone deserves access to the healed version of you. Especially the ones who tried to destroy the broken version. They helped create this, and now they have to live with what they created, the silence, the distance, the presence that no longer bends. You've become someone their lies can't reach, their games can't shake, and their guilt can't move. You're unrecognizable not because you changed to hurt them, but because you changed to finally protect you. And when they see you now walking in strength, building in peace, living in truth, they won't know how to respond. Because what they tried to destroy didn't just survive, it became something so far beyond what they could control. It terrifies them. Let them sit with that. Now you see it. Everything they tried to use against you only sharpened the person they can no longer touch. You didn't just survive their silence, you mastered yours. You didn't just walk through fire, you became fire. The version of you they tried to destroy, that version is gone, and in its place stands someone unshaken, unreachable, unrecognizable, not because you wanted revenge, but because you finally realized who you are when no one else is speaking for you, when no one else is shaping your worth, when no one else is carrying your name. Let them watch, let them remember what they lost, let them see the strength they awakened in their absence, because what God is doing in you now is not just restoration, it's revelation, a silent storm they can't outrun. And what they tried to break is now the proof they'll never forget. Your rise is no longer coming, it's already begun.